Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And comic book journalism is dead, officially dead, according to both ICV2 and Comics Beat, both reputable, vetted comic book journalism outlets. They're basically writing their own obituaries.
But we've been telling them this for a while now.
Yeah,
the fact that we figured that out before you guys said something.
The fact that we figured out years before you guys said something, that you're not really paying attention to what's actually going on. No offense intended there, Rob, because your face is like really huge on my screen. So we're going to talk about this because it leads into a bigger discussion just about online comics media. And oh, God, I'm having such a good day.
I know.
Such a good day.
I'll tell you why in a bit.
We found out through following the links here, looking at ICV2 and then going out to Comics Beat, that Hive Works apparently is going under. And
so sad.
Golly, that just,
We'll explain more as we go.
We'll explain more.
We have so many stories.
Have a bit of an axe to grind with some of the people that were there. I don't know if they are currently, but I have very strong thoughts about Hive Works. So before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. You'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Today's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day for some of us. It's going to be a good day. So here's the thing. Look, read through this article. Other people talking about this article. This is ICV2, their businessy type website, yada yada. But basically, he's like, "Oh my gosh, guys, it's all like clickbait farms and whatever." And then nasty old Google. Google killed websites, niche websites.
No, you don't say. Again, we've been telling you guys this for weeks, months. We've been telling
years.
You this. About Google especially, though. We've been telling you. We've been sounding the alarm on Google for a while now.
Last year, I said, you know what Google's going to do? You know what they're going to do? They're going to use their AI snippets and they're going to replace niche blogs. You're not going to need blogs anymore.
They already made it so you can't get found unless you're certain people.
Yeah. And people are like, "You're being alarmist. Why are you being so alarmist? Like, you're just saying I should just like give up my blog." I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty much saying you should just like give up your blog for the most part.
Pivot and figure something else out.
Pivot.
But yeah, because it doesn't matter what you do. Like, if you can't be found, you can't be found. We've been telling you this. And they're like, "Oh my God, guys, Google's screwing us over." And it's like,
what?
No.
It's like, well, Google won't screw us over. We're the good guys. I'm like, no, they're going to screw everybody over because they don't care. They don't care. All they care about is making money. Yeah. So here's the thing. Basically, the people interested in comics news, just straight up comics news, those people, not a lot of them exist anymore.
I was going to say, there wasn't a whole lot to begin with. Let's put it that way.
There wasn't a whole lot to begin with, right? So a lot of those people just kind of moved on because so many of these websites became insufferable political mouthpieces. And they were clearly just, jerking off the publishers too.
Comics Beat. Sorry.
Yeah. And
sorry, excuse me, has something in my throat.
And or they got bought up by other conglomerates like Valnet. Are we allowed to talk about Valnet?
I don't know. They might send a lawyer after us again.
They might send another lawyer after us.
Here's the thing though about the Comics Beat. Weren't they actually bought out by somebody and then they had to buy it back?
Yeah, no, I think it was Lion Forge.
I think it might have been, it was like Lion Forge bought them, but then I don't think they were worth keeping.
Yeah, and I think
so they basically
there was a time, I'll say it, there was a time I actually thought about approaching Comics Beat, maybe another website about purchasing them. There was a time.
Why? Because I said the same thing.
That was it. Why?
I even said to you then, I said, why bother? Because no one cares. You're throwing away money.
Yeah. And I was kind of looking into it, and this was years ago when we were actually, we were actually doing okay with blogs. And of course, we've been hit just like everybody else has. But I was kind of looking at possible acquisitions or making offers or whatever. And
and I said no.
Thankfully, Geeky talked me out of that one. She's like, don't even
that's
bother.
Stupid. That's just like flushing money down the toilet.
Yeah. And here we are. So it's like, yeah, thank God we didn't buy any more websites. But so we got Heidi McDonald out here talking about comics journalism being dead in 2014. It was dying in 2015. It was dying. 2016, it was dying. 2023, it was dying. 2024 was dying. Oh, that was the one where she said, I guess I'll never get to wear my Eisner Award dress again because they stopped having category for.
Yeah, and then they had such a hissy fit that they restated it, and then people like her got nominated, didn't they?
I think so, because she had a hissy fit. Yeah.
Yeah. If I have a hissy fit, do I get nominated for awards too?
Yeah, you could.
I do journalism we cover comics. Should I get an award?
Journalism? In January, Women Write About Comics went on hiatus because look, there's no money. There's no money in it because all the traffic has dried up. Everybody's got ad blockers. And frankly, the audience moved on before any of this happened. Like a lot of people checked out. I remember Comics Beat used to be pretty reputable. The Comics Journal used to be pretty reputable. Bleeding Cool, actually it's weird. Bleeding Cool, I don't think it's changed very much, but they're actually the most reputable.
I know we're saying something because everybody has a joke that they were like the Inquirer.
They were like the Inquirer, but they're actually, I would say they're the most reputable site out there now, which is shocking. But everybody else got bought. Comic Book Resources, Newsarama, they all got bought and absorbed into video game sites, and then those sites got bought by other sites, and it's become like blogosphere Highlander, right? Mm-hmm. So having any basically the only way you're gonna get anywhere with any of this kind of stuff now is if you have some kind of social media presence and or you can charge for your content. That's it. That's it. And if people aren't willing to, and Comics Bee, I know they had a Patreon because at one point in time I supported it, but I don't think they had a lot of people supporting it.
Well, that I don't know, but I do know that journalism, the comics are dying all the time. So of course the journalism around it, when you get it right, a Diamond went bankrupt again. This comic didn't do well. Seriously, anime and manga's kicking their asses. I mean, how many times can you write the same things over and over?
And comics culture has changed, right? Because very few people are just into comic books now. They're not into, and if they are, it's not just Western comics. Like our generation, my generation, we were like the last people that were just strictly about comic books, and everything has kind of congealed into like nerd goo, which sounds really bad, but it has. It's like video games and manga and TV shows and tech and toys and all that stuff is just kind of all, if you're into comics are just a part of it, right? It's not like you're just all about the comics. So finding websites or podcasts or YouTube channels or whatever, they're just about comic books. It's very, very hard to do because the audience isn't there. Mm-hmm. To support it. You need numbers, you need eyeballs, and you could see it. You could see it, like, especially on sites like Comic Book Resources. There's a reason it's just CBR now, because there wasn't enough interest in just comic books as the years went on, and the audience fell away from comic books for various reasons. That you could see that they started pivoting to other stuff because they're like, yeah, we got to open it up for other stuff because there's not enough people interested.
Plus, that's why they call it CBR now, not Comic Book Resources.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. And this has happened with a lot of websites. It just happens. People move on. I mean, the comics aren't doing themselves any favors. I mean, I saw this is on Bounding in the comics. Ultimate Spider-Man is beating Amazing Spider-Man yet again.
I was gonna say, how's that new? That's been going on.
And when they give people, this is what's so frustrating about the comic book industry in general, is when they give people what they want, they actually do tend to sell.
I know. It's like same with Hollywood, but they don't listen.
But they run away from it. They're like, oh, wait, people like married Peter Parker with kids? No, we can't do that. We're gonna introduce Paul into Amazing Spider-Man, and then call the readers awful people for wanting to see Peter and MJ together again. But yeah, so as people are losing interest in comic books, naturally they're not going to want to read news about comic books, and if they are, they're going to listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos or something, right? It is what it is, especially when a lot of the websites are very political, supporting Ukraine here on the freaking beat. But so let's go back to Heidi, because we're getting to the good part. We're getting to the really good part, the part that makes me so excited. I can't wait to read about this.
Trust me, we have reason. We normally wouldn't celebrate something like this, but we have really good reasons.
Sometimes if you wait by the river, the bodies just drift on by. Comics journalism, Heidi says, like every other kind of journalism, was killed by social media, Google, Meta, and the race to create a world made of AI slop. Well, yeah, but a lot of your peers sold out before, which kind of, helped with the problem. But again, there never really were that many people interested in straight up comic book news. All right, guys. Okay, here's a good part. I got to bring my mic in a little bit closer. and nobody else is going to get this really because we've talked
We'll
about it often.
explain.
But last week, I had a bit of a shocking discovery. The internet comics community is also dead. What?
I know.
What? Yeah, we've been saying webcomics are dead for a while. Webtoon took over. I realized this when I ran the news that Hiveworks was shutting down. Hiveworks
Mostly shutting down.
Mostly. They're done. They're done. Hiveworks
And
is...
I was going to say, you're talking about they touched hundreds of webcomicers over the years. Yes, and I want to point out that Heidi McDonald benefited from Hiveworks because Hiveworks parked their ads and ran big ads on their page for a long time.
Yes. Hiveworks is a business that has touched, hundreds of webcomics back in
the
day.
They ruined. That's a whole other story.
Well, this is interesting. This would have released a flood of tweets from people giving their thoughts, good or bad, for at least a day or so. How many times in days of yore I would check out the Beat Slack and see someone say, oh my discourse on XXX is kicking off. Nothing kicks off anymore because nobody cares.
We're going to kick it off. We're going to kick it off right here.
The primary reason is we're living in an unprecedented hellscape in which a remake of Jojo Rabbit or Black Mirror could break out in our living rooms at any moment. No, speaking of Jojo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's discuss.
All right, let's get into
Hiveworks. Hiveworks. We do not really have good feelings towards now. Not all the creators and the people that are involved with it now. Our stories go back to when, before it started.
When it first started. Like you were there before
because there was this person named JoJo who put Hiveworks together. And how we were introduced to JoJo was there were some comic forums back in the day, webcomic forums back in the day, and people actually were on them because webcomics were really popular.
They were.
And he comes in, he or she, I don't know what they identify as now, comes in and was like, I'm a big deal because I said I'm a big deal. And I did this and I did. Am I wrong? Right. This is what happened.
No, this is what happened.
Did this and I did that. And you should come over to Hiveworks where I'm starting and I'm doing this. Yeah. And I was like, this guy's full of shit. I don't, whether it was a guy or girl, I don't know. I still can't tell. Full of shit. Whatever. Well, we told you before about the place that kept, trying to cause us trouble. They kept trying to acquire us as part of the collective. We said no.
Yes.
And then weird stuff would happen. Like I remember there was a comic I'm not going to name that we were way bigger than, got way more numbers than them because we used to get Lexa was a thing then, and we were like kicking their ass. All of a sudden they join his team, and suddenly their Alexa goes through the roof with all these weird nebulous views that when you look from where they were coming from, it wasn't American traffic. And all this other stuff happened. And then there was the Project Wonderful debacle. So Project Wonderful.
Oh, R.I.P. Project Wonderful.
Project Wonderful was cool. Project Wonderful was a thing where you could run ads on bigger comics or comics in general, have ad spaces on your comic, and then you could get advertised and it would bring a lot of views in. You'd pay for an ad. So what would happen is, like, say I wanted to run it on this comic called, Yellow Paper or something. Anyway, they would have it. I don't know. There's yellow paper in front of me. That's yellow paper. They would have like a box, and you would say, okay, I'm willing to pay up to $5 for this space, right?
Yes.
And then whoever was the high bidder would get to run, and when your money ran out, then you'd be kicked off. This is relevant because you could do it up to $999. Well, when certain big comics would drop on certain days, they would turn around. This one person who was in charge was the one who would do it. And Neon got tired of always being outbid on this. So he put $999 just in, because he thought, well, I'll run my time and then I'll go. But usually you wouldn't go that high unless someone bid you up that high. And this asshat kept going around, and basically he'd go around and, or somebody, we're pretty sure we know who it is, would go around and drive these ads up to the top, throwing you out of money so they get it cheap and can park there. And we know in the one instance it was him or her because they took a screenshot and went around saying that we were dumbasses for paying that much. But the only reason it was costing us that much,
we didn't actually pay that much. That was just like
but the reason was it was showing that it was up to the maximum bid was because he ran it up. So this ended up being a whole problem with Project Wonderful, to the place we ended up talking to the owners. They contacted us to find out why the ad stuff was so messed up. And we explained to them what was happening.
Yeah. Hiveworks, basically what happened was they decided they were going to run anybody who wasn't part of their network. They were going to run up the rates so high that because webcomicers typically are pretty poor, right? Like we were doing better than most people in the webcomic space, or than a lot of people. but most people couldn't afford to bid. So, we got a return on that because we got, our merchandise sales and our advertising, whatever. So they counted on
When
people
did
being
Girl
poor.
Genius go over there?
They were there for a long time.
Oh,
They've been
Girl
there-
Genius, you're an idiot. That was stupid.
Yeah, they were bigger than. Well, here's how they grew. So what happened, and I'll tell you the whole Hiveworks lore. What happened was, JoJo had an ad network, and with some skeezy, like, I'm trying to remember, it was like Chinese people, investors, or
Yeah, I
something.
think he was talking about it at one
And
point.
he was like openly talking about all this stuff.
I think they said it said about it at one point. I think I got a
Yeah.
screen cap of that somewhere.
So it was very hard at that point in time. This would have been about 2010, 2011. It was very hard to get into a good ad network because they did not want webcomics, because there's such rampant abuse in webcomics because everybody's clicking on their own ads trying to make some money, that it was very hard to get, ads. So he got into this ad network, and then basically he was like, oh, come over here, get rid of Project Wonderful on your site and just run with us and you'll make more money. So he would talk them into, so for the longest time, Project Wonderful was basically, it was a bidding thing, but it was also a link share, because that's how you discovered other comics, because it was hard because everybody had their own websites back then. You used to, host your own website.
You didn't just go to Webtoons.
Right. You didn't just go Webtoons, and they actually opened the door wide open for Webtoons. So what happened was he would get somebody into the network, make them use his advertising. They would have to take Project Wonderful off of their site. So that shut the door on other comics. Like if you wanted to advertise on Girl Genius, you couldn't through Project Wonderful. You had to go through Hiveworks.
And that's what he tried to tell me when we inquired about running an ad on the one site. And he tried to tell us that it was worth so much more money because they were so much bigger than us. I'm like, but they aren't. The numbers are showing they aren't bigger than us and everything else. And he was being a complete butt about this.
And they also, I know they got busted a couple times for like losing their Google ads and
there
stuff.
was some Project Wonderful, or not Project, AdSense issues. If I recall, right? I don't remember all the details about that, so I don't want to say that. It was just a mess. I don't remember all the details about that, but there was some weirdness with that. But this person was so ass mad. We ended up causing entire meetings about us. He wanted to take us down because one, we wouldn't join his collection.
We told him no.
Two, we told him no a couple times.
We told him no.
Two, because we're not beholden to you.
No.
Two, there was the Project Wonderful debacle, which they literally took the picture and posted on the internet. So they can't say that wasn't true because they're the ones to put the picture up. And then there was the Wikipedia debacle.
We can't
say for sure it was that person, but comments were made from that person that seemed like they were being that they may have been involved.
Basically, like TLDR on the whole thing with Hiveworks, and the reason that I to this day have very negative feelings about them, and that I'm delighted that they're folding. I'm absolutely giddy about it because I'm like, it couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of assholes.
Well, I don't know if that person's still involved.
I don't think he is, but
because the thing is that if that person was our problem, and a couple people around them that used to run it too were the problem. I have no problem with these creators. I have no problem.
Yeah, some of these people I get along with.
If there are people now that are running it that are good, I have no problem with them. I don't know anything about them. My problem with them was I think that they single-handedly led to the collapse of webcomics.
Yeah.
I also think the person who was in charge was a complete asshole, which was a big part of it. And they deliberately, poked the bear when it came to us. And that was stupid. But I also think they might've been behind another collective falling apart. That one I can't prove. And I'm not saying I can't. I'm not even mentioning what it was. But there was some suspicious thing was when they suddenly had an attack that took it down and made the comic, other comics in this organization feel unsafe because they got DDoSed.
Yeah.
And then immediately they all suddenly got picked up by them. Yeah. And then other people that were picked up later said they were wondering if it wasn't staged from the get-go too. Yeah. But there's no proof of that. So I'm not saying that for sure is the case because I don't know. I'm just saying that was what people who were involved were saying.
But what I can say is if you did not join them, right? If you did not join them willingly, they would go out of their way to try to destroy you.
Us especially.
They hated us because, we saw through the bullshit early on. But
Wikipedia, they took us off. We got moved from Wikipedia by some random person who wasn't even a webcomic editor. And we had to fight to get that one turned back on. We know what happened there because we heard from people behind the scenes, but I'm not going to say because I don't have proof of it. But
the links at which the people that were in charge then. Now, this is over 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever.
Don't know if these are the same people who were there.
I do not know. But the links back then that they would go to squash you if you did not join their collective. And Hiveworks is a very, very appropriate name. And then, it was insane. But yeah, it was basically you join them or else. And then Tapas and Webtoon came along and ate their lunch. But the thing is that they already had everything primed for Webtoon to take over because they had collapsed the entire webcomic ecosystem.
Yeah, it did. And here's the thing, though, but I was not joking when I said they had entire meetings. Apparently, we'd heard this from people that were in the collective. People that were in the collective told us there were literally meetings about us, about how we wouldn't join, and about us. They had meetings about us, and it was so bad. Later on, it's a funny story. You can tell the story when you actually ran into this person at a convention.
Oh yeah, so the person that was in charge of Hiveworks, I was actually because we were actually friends with or friendly with.
We got along with pretty much everyone because we weren't dicks.
We're fine. But yeah, you
were sitting at a table. You were talking. We did a panel with this piece of people. I'm not going to name names. Neon was sitting at the table with them, just having a chat because they're like, let's hang out and talk. So they were talking about Kickstarter and stuff. You guys were just hanging, chatting, and your name tag was backwards. Stuff, yeah. So that's important. So now continue.
Yeah, so he comes up to the table and he thought it was somebody else, and he went to shake my hand. And
he's like, "Hi, I'm so and so, and I'm a big deal.
I'm a big deal and I turned my badge around. I'm like, oh, hey, I'm Tom Pratt from Shadowbinders. How you do? And he's like, oh my god,
his face. I watched the whole thing.
Ran away.
I saw them coming, and I watched the entire thing from across the way. This person's face went pure white. I thought they were going to shit their pants.
I was like, oh, you really are a little shit. Like, I mean. Very short, mousy, nerdy. Like, I'm like, God, you're just whatever. Yeah. So I've
seen it. I know a couple people now that's the same type.
There are a lot. There are a lot of people like this.
Shit,
Yeah, there are a lot of people like this in the nerd space, especially. They talk big online, they act big online, they cause all kinds of problems behind the scenes, but they will never confront you in a fair fight. Never. They'll say shit about you. They'll talk smack about you. They'll subtweet or whatever. They'll try to stir shit up behind the scenes. They'll try to do stuff to hurt your business behind the scenes, but they won't actually deal with you head on in a fair fight because they can't.
So this is why Neon is very, very, gleeful.
Delighted.
About
Absolutely giddy. My nipples are so hard right now.
Again, I want to say that we don't know if that person's involved anymore.
I have no idea.
One that got me the most with this person was, it turned out the one person we were on KeenSpot, the one person that was working on KeenSpot that was like doing the web stuff, I could see where the web stuff was. We couldn't figure out why the heck every time we had an ad on Project Wonderful, all of a sudden we'd be bumped out by Hiveworks, by one of the Hiveworks people. Yep. It would happen like within seconds of us launching an ad. We're like, how the heck do they know where we are? Because we even go find ones that they weren't on and they didn't advertise on normally, and we'd start doing well, and then like we'd be bumped out. Well, the person turned out they were working for both KeenSpot and Hiveworks at the same time.
Yeah.
So apparently they reporting to them wherever we put an ad up on our site. An ad they see where we were advertising. Yep. It was they were reporting to them so they could kick us off our ad spots to try to run us out. So we have strong feelings in this regard. We hadn't said much about it. We've mentioned it here and there, like briefly, but not in detail. There's a reason. So we're usually very genuinely nice unless you give us a reason to be pissed.
Yeah, these people try. I mean, look, I'm gonna be honest. These people tried to completely destroy.
Well, not these people. It was one person, maybe a couple people with them.
Well, at the time, it was basically that person ran the whole damn thing.
Right. I don't know if they're involved anymore, and I still feel bad for the creators. I'm just saying why we have bad
for the creators. I'm like, it's known
now because if he or she whatever. I say that because they kept changing gender, so I don't know what they are. If they aren't there anymore, that's not their fault. They started the whole thing, but they might not even be part of it anymore. And I don't want to condemn people who aren't part of it for the behavior of that person.
You're being so nice. I'm
but
like,
it's not fair to condemn. He did,
like,
but it's not fair to condemn everyone else. The behavior of that person.
But I'm just saying, Hiveworks was founded under very dubious.
It was very dubious
business practices, very scammy, very underhanded shit.
Yeah, this person kept moving all the time too. Like suddenly, I've been moving to another place,
why.
And apparently, when they moved, because they talked about it, this was all on record. They would leave their furniture they all bought at IKEA at the apartment, or put it in the dumpster out back, go to another place and buy all new stuff again.
Yeah,
It was the weirdest thing.
Who the hell moves around the globe and ditches their furniture after 6 months?
Other countries too. It went to other countries too.
Doesn't that set off some warning bells? I mean, it's weird. The whole thing was weird. But I will tell you what happened to webcomics was they came in, they destroyed the ecosystem, they ran Project Morphle out, and then Webtoon basically came in right after and just it was an all-you-could-eat buffet because there really wasn't any competition. And,
yeah, because they already weakened the system and took down Project Wonderful and everything else that was keeping balance and keeping it fair, keeping it available to people. And then they just, and if it hadn't been them, it would have been webtoons. Yeah, so I mean, it would have been somebody else eventually. Let's be honest.
I remember thinking to myself when Webtoon just kind of came in and picked up the scraps of whatever was left of the webcomic scene. I was like, well, yeah, I guess you don't get it either, huh? Yeah, it's like
so and now Webtoons is doing well, and now they're probably going out, or they're changing their business model or whatever. But I think it's funny though that she was going on about about how she was so shocked, and I'm like, yeah, did you mention that they used to advertise on your site and you had like a perma? Oh, she did. Oh, she admitted it. Yeah, they had like a perma box. They were there because she wouldn't made a deal with them.
Yeah, no, she admits it. She admits it. And then she talks about the 89 trillion YouTube channels, the podcasts, and the TikToks.
Someone sounds jealous.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. So what I think, and we'll go back to, we'll talk about the Hiveworks.
Oh, we're really sorry. We kept this going for a while. Sorry.
Like, it's basically everything's imploding, right? And the reason these people are so ass mad, the reason they've been trying so hard to shut down YouTubers and shut up YouTubers for years is YouTubers were eating their lunch and they're angry about it. It's not fair. It's not fair that YouTubers are doing fine, that podcasters doing fine. Hell, Rob Liefeld has his podcast out there, and he's got his podcast out there, and he's doing really well. And they, some of these sites now, not The Beat, but there were some of them that were just like they always used Rob Liefeld as a punching bag, and he's got his own podcast now. He's doing pretty good.
No one's stopping them from going ahead and doing their own thing. No one's stopping them at all.
But yeah, she does mention that she did, or they did advertise for a couple of years, but yeah, right here. She said before going on about what happened, The Beat was partnered with Hiveworks for hosting and ad services from 2016.
Oh, they got hosting too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Okay.
This is what the MO was. They go out, buy out all the inventory for advertising and run their comics and everything on the sites, but deliberately block it so no one else could do it. And if you wanted to run ads too, the rates were ridiculous.
Yeah. And it was basically just an advertising. And they learned it from KeenSpot actually, but KeenSpot, they're still publishing comics. And actually I still get along fine with Crosby's. I talk to him sometimes off and on Twitter. I have no issue with them.
Wait, JoJo's name is Zalette now?
Did you dead name Zalette? I don't know. Is that
the character with the executive team? Zalette Stillwell and Issa. Issa.
Okay. Well, back in the day, before that person, there was another person.
They were called JoJo.
Yes. Are you allowed to say that? I don't know.
But that's what happened. It's true.
It's true.
I said I didn't know what gender because it kept changing.
Who the hell knows? Yeah. So I had a lot of talks. Said it wasn't always a perfect team up. A tech person who detested WordPress caused some exasperated mirth. I think I know who that person is. That would be
the one I got in a fight with.
That was the one you got in a fight with. That was the one that
sounds like Kusa.
Yeah, that was the one who was leaking our analytics, I believe, to Hiveworks because they also worked for KeenSpot. I believe.
And they tried to get into it with me too, and I took their ass on too.
Hiveworks had ambitious plans over the years, published some excellent books. In 2015, they boasted over 12 million users in a month. Well, according to them.
They boasted a lot of things.
In 2020, they worked with 7Cs.
But there was also a whole bunch of weirdness too about crowdfunders. And money was, allegedly going missing and stuff.
Whatever. I just, my understanding with that was there were people that were letting them run their crowdfunders and they were basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. So they'd take one person's crowdfunder, pay for the one that they were, months or years late on. And then, what I'm saying? That was what I heard. I can't prove that, but there was a lot of, they never really seemed like a real company.
Pretty sure I have the chat logs on that, but that's a whole other story. But
they never seemed like a real company. It was just like a bunch of like art school kids trying to figure out how the hell to run a business.
So that Zach Weidersmith took Saturday Morning Breakfast cereal off of it.
Yes.
It went back to self-hosting.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was on there. Like, it's like everybody that was left went over there. It's insane to me.
Yeah. And I knew something was up because I know I talked to you a couple months ago because I haven't really thought about the webcomic scene in such a long time. And I was curious because it came up in conversation. We were talking about webcomics, and I went out to the Hiveworks site and I'm like, 95% of these comics are on hiatus now.
Oh, they were before, because I used to track this stuff and they were before. That's where I learned, like I tell people all the time, I told them back in webcomics too, not to get too caught up in people's numbers, because a lot of times they weren't real. Because there are some telltale signs about people buying traffic overseas. And even though they're trying to say, you can't tell, I did. No. If you know where to look, you can totally tell where traffic came from, on even on YouTube, just saying. But I learned how to track this stuff from these people. I'm sorry, but I did. I have notebooks.
Yeah. I mean, you had like they were, yeah, it was a mess, but I mean, people don't realize like how cutthroat this whole scene was, like the way, because again, it seems like the less money is in something in a scene, the more people try to fight over scraps, right? And you see it like the smaller the scene is, the more vicious people are in that scene because there's not a lot of resources. Like if the money was just flowing all over the place, people would be like, oh yeah, whatever, you know, the more the merrier. But like when you get into like some kind of a niche thing and there's not a lot of money in it, everybody's going to start eating each other.
Well, I just think this whole thing's funny. I mean, it's just because if you know like the whole story of how this ended up getting here, and basically I think what happened was that the ads are shutting down because Google.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like I just picked, you know, Girl Genius. And well, one, yeah, you've only got one ad on the site, but it's also blocked. I have an ad blocker on, and so it's not even a good, either that or there's
another one
ads anymore. Yeah, which is possible.
But that's an AdSense one because they can talk about the.
Yep, there we go. It's kind of coming up, but they don't pay shit. I mean, these banner ads don't pay shit. Most people are not spending money on banner ads anymore. They're spend money on video ads, on podcast ads, on hiring influencers. They're not, and it was hard for webcomics before because a lot of webcomics early on, again, they were clicking on banner ads and they were scamming Google. So a lot of ad networks would not take you.
Which is why Project Wonderful was such a great answer, and that got ruined. And then a lot of these places, I
would have bought Project. Ryan.
Well, they already shut it down before that, but
yeah, which is a shame. Ryan North, who he writes for Marvel now, but he did the dinosaur comics, and yeah, I would have looked.
It was a really good system.
It was a really good system.
As long as people weren't being, you know, until they started the bidding up shit, and that came from one source. Yeah. But then, you know, how you make your money would be like in publishing your books and merchandise.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother story about what happened with that. And but I think that's going away according to this. The publishing stuff, but they're just going to focus on web stuff. Isn't that what they're basically saying?
Yeah. Well, no, I think they're shutting down completely. Because if you read here, they said they don't know if Webtoon Tapas took away their content. People.
The Webtoons kicked their ass.
They're having a going out of business sale. Basically, they said, I'm sure there's more to the Hiveworks story, but for now, I'm going to say I'm sad. Their son's saying
we're not sad at all.
I'm like, I can't believe they hung in there. The only reason they hung in this long is I think that a lot of artists don't want to deal with the business end of things, so they willingly hand the reins over to somebody else.
Well, I'm wondering if that person isn't still there though, because they acted like, well, I made the deals with them back then, but they didn't say they weren't there now.
That's true. Because that was like
I don't know.
Hiveworks is going to be running a clearance sale starting in mid-April through May 31st. Any remaining products are going to be returned to the artist. Sounds very final to me. According to the statement, Hiveworks remains committed to helping artists share original creator-owned webcomics with audiences across the world in the way that they want, and will continue operating web services. So they're going to do webcomics, but like to what end? You can't monetize with ads. You're not running crowdfunders. You're not publishing books. It just sounds to me like it's probably going to be them and their friends just kind of running their web comics.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, like you said, like our Saturday Morning Breakfast story already left. So it's
just a matter of time.
And the thing is, they went back to they left to go do their own website. You mean like they had before they joined?
Yeah. But the thing is, there's nothing left now. There's no point in running your own website. You're better off finding a social media platform. I mean, people find webcomics now on social media, and they find webcomics on Webtoon. Webtoon's basically YouTube for webcomics, but even that like has changed so much, because we were on there when Webtoon first started, and they used to kick money over there to people that, you know, perform. You had to hit a certain threshold, but you know, we got, you know, a couple $1,000s a month just for posting reruns which was awesome. You know, it was free money. And
Mhm.
they don't do that anymore because that was, I think, venture capital. They were just pumping into people's Patreons. But you know, you're going to have to do it yourself, and you're going to have to build a platform. And frankly, I'm going to be honest, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Doom and Gloom, but the appetite for webcomics is not what it used to be.
Oh
People have
no,
moved
it's
on to
not.
video, and they
And
moved
if it
on to other
was there,
stuff.
what is there is it's a webtoons thing.
Yeah, yeah. And that's it.
So.
And then they'll just
So
turn it into a
anyway,
Netflix show.
yeah. So if we sound like we're absolute assholes, then I'm sorry, but we have really, 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 really good reason to not like this place a lot. And again, our animosity is geared at specific individuals and their behavior, not all the comics in Hiveworks, as long as they were involved in that shit, and the people that are the creators and stuff, because a lot of them were actually really cool people. We're not talking about them.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear. And I'm only telling you anecdotally what I can tell you about what happened to us. I can't speak for anybody else.
Yeah.
But I think I do have copies of screenshots of things somewhere.
I don't know. That was like a very dark time. Like I'm very, because we were really cooking, and then they just came in like a wrecking ball and just like, and there were a lot of other webcomics too that were big that would not play ball with them that got gone too.
Yeah, no, but they're on there now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's just everybody clinging to what did George Carlin say, a pillow full of beer farts. Like everybody's just kind of like a plane goes down. It's like everybody's clinging on to this because it's like there's nothing left of that scene. There's nothing left of it. So you're gonna have people just, you know,
that's why we left a long time ago and started other stuff.
It's like we saw the writing on the wall with webcomics. We saw the writing on the wall with just the mainstream comic book industry. Blogs, I gotta tell you, the blogging thing that kind of came out of left field. It was like, oh, by the way, there's AI. By the way, nobody's gonna go your blog anymore because of it. You know, but I mean, the warning signs were there. We saw it last year that they were talking about it, and people wait until it's too late to pivot. And that's one thing I'm gonna tell you is like you always have to be a little paranoid. But when you start to see change, because nothing lasts forever, nothing stays exactly the same, especially in business, especially in tech, you start to see getting some bumps in the road or whatever, you're going to have to pivot, because if you don't, you're going to be on your backside looking up, wondering what the hell happened. And kind of like some of these cartoonists are probably like, what the hell? You know, what the hell is going on? And that's just it. And if you're a creator, you got to take control of your own destiny, I think, and not let a bunch of other people, you know, run it for you. Is that fair?
Oh, and if you're JoJo or whatever the hell your name is, now you can kiss my ass.
Okay, that too. All right, we're gonna. Man, it sounds very final. They're like, yeah, we're gonna complete.
I don't really care. I mean, you don't understand the shit.
Oh yeah,
that went down. Anyway, we didn't talk about it. Like we haven't mentioned them hardly at all in years. So whatever.
Whatever. Good luck with all that. I'm gonna wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.